On this episode of This is Game Boy, we leap our way into your playlist. Hello everybody and welcome back to another brand new episode of the This is Game Boy podcast, your number one Game Boy podcast. Like, I have actually no idea how many Game Boy podcasts there are out there, but I'm just gonna say we're number one because if you know anything about us, is that we are full of ourselves. Anyways, this is a special podcast for me because I'm actually doing this one while standing up because Lex had to use a de-esser for my vocal track so many times last time that I can't sit down anymore. So this is really special for me. Anyways, as usual, I'm Moelle and I'm here with my co-host eBloodyCandy. How have you been,
Hello.
EBC? What have you been up to?
I've been good. Just got back from SGDQ. Summer games done quick. A couple weeks ago, whatever. Ran Kirby's Dream Land Extra Mode on the last day of it all. Aside from the soft lock that I did right away in the run, it was a good run. Sub 13 in a marathon. It was good overall. After that, literally a week or two later, we had Handheld Heroes, which was the week-long handheld marathon. A lot of really good runs in that. A lot of fun, entertaining runs. I got to run Max or Rubble Saver, which is what this episode is about today, on the first night of the marathon. And then I got to run Shinchan 1 on Saturday morning, so I can't complain too terribly much. Outside of that, recently I took a little bit of a break from retro stuff. I will be running Kirby's Dream Land again at Midwest Speed Fest in a couple weeks. But Octopath Traveler's consumed my time right now,
Yeah.
and with the new WoW expansion coming out, that's starting to consume my time a little bit as well. So, yeah. How about you, Mo?
Yeah, weirdly enough, all of those runs you did the past few weeks on all those marathons, I had not been able to catch any of them. I had to look up the VODs for each of them, which is kind of dumb because those were the things I really wanted to see, but yeah, that's sad that I couldn't. I watched most of SGDQ. I had time to do that, but Handheld Heroes, I maybe have seen 10 runs in total out of everything that happened over the weekend, so it's kind of sad that I had so much to do besides just relaxing and just watching some streams. That also, of course, made me not be able to stream a lot. The only thing I actually really did the past few weeks is that I did my 600 followers special, which
Nice.
was during my week of vacation from work. I had 3 days that I actually could stream for a long time, so I tried to put some time into that. Strangely enough, I did not go to Game Boy games for that one. Last year, I did my 500 followers special, which was Tiny Town 1 through 5 back to back. I only managed to get to the end of 4 because just when I started 5, Twitch actually kicked me off for some reason and I couldn't get back online anymore. So, but I was 12 hours in already and I was pretty tired, so maybe that was a good thing. But yeah, for my special, I played, what is it called? Brave Fencer Musashi on PS1, which is an amazing game. I had never played it before, mostly because it didn't come out in Europe. So it took me a while to get to that game, but I'm really glad I played it. It was a lot of fun. It's a very funny game. Of course, it is a PlayStation 1 game, a 3D platformer. The games weren't that good at 3D then yet, so was sometimes a little bit hard to control. But I did do one thing that is Game Boy related, and that's that I played the Link's Awakening DX randomizer, and that was just so much fun. We're probably gonna do an episode about that in the future. Maybe even get the creator of that, Saver, on the podcast as like a guest. But it was a lot of fun. It's not publicly released yet, but it's easy to find if you want to check it out. Definitely do that. They are constantly working on newer versions. There's an amazing tracker for it already as well, which helps a lot, of course, for the game. Yeah, and that's pretty much what I did. And then the past few days, I've been playing Octopath Traveler as well, of course.
Yeah, I was watching you play LADX Randomizer, and I didn't realize it was Randomizer until you opened up a chest and got like the Nightmare Key out of it, and I'm like, the Nightmare Key isn't in that chest. Like, I don't run LADX all that much anymore, but like, I know where the Nightmare Key is at, and it's not in that chest. So I was very confused at first, and I realized I'm like, oh, you're playing Randomizer LADX. Okay.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
It looked fun.
Like, the thing is, it's still a little bit underdeveloped, I guess. So the random chest things don't really work unless you also do random doors, which means every door of a house or a cave entrance or even a dungeon entrance you go through just puts you somewhere completely random on the map, so you never know where you're gonna end up. Which makes it seem hard, but actually it's not if you really know just how the overworld works a little bit in Link's Awakening. But one thing which is kind of detrimental to the game is that you want to get the feather as fast as possible, because 99% of the game is just like literally based around being able to jump. And that was the final item I got during the entire randomizer run. So that took me a while to actually get the game going. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Definitely check that out.
Yeah, I mean, Link's Awakening is pretty much, you want the rock feather, you want the hook shot, and then you want the fire rod, and then you're pretty much done. Like, you have everything you could possibly want. The other stuff is just extra.
Yeah. Literally the final chest I opened that I found in the overworld was the Rock's Feather. So I hadn't been able to complete any dungeon because I didn't have the Rock's Feather. So
that's insane. For the photos you have to take in that game, are they all random as well? So like the one where the one by like the weather vane where you have to have like Meryl and yourself, and I forgot the other guy's name, but they take a picture in front of there. Like if you take a picture in front of there, does it do like the fishing man one or like?
I think they actually disabled the entire photo side quest in the game.
Oh really?
Because I know I entered the shop, which is still the shop. I think that's the only door that actually leads you to where it is. But if I remember correctly, it actually just stops that because it's probably gonna end up ruining the rest of the game or something in the randomizer. So I think that's gone. What I can say is you better play it either on emulator or on Game Boy, wait, what is it called? Game Boy interface on your GameCube or something like that. Because, of course, there's a color dungeon, which you absolutely cannot access on a Super Game Boy or a Super Game Boy 2. I got lucky enough that no necessary item was actually in the dungeon. Because I was playing on my Super Game Boy 2, so I never was able to actually enter that thing. But yeah, so better play it on that, because otherwise you might just soft lock yourself completely out of progressing through the game.
But yeah, no, that whole, like, I'm not a big like randomizer person. Like, I kind of like scoff at randomizers quite a bit, but that randomizer actually looked enjoyable, because I do like Link's Awakening quite a bit. So
yeah, that's the only one I've ever played besides the pretty vanilla what's it called, Link to the Past one, which just randomizes the chests. That was fun because I like that game a lot as well, and I know a lot about that game as well, so it was pretty easy to get through. But this one, Link's Awakening, is one of my top 3 Game Boy games of all time, so I know it pretty much by heart, and it was really fun to get through. It only took me 8 hours, which is pretty much my time it takes me to casually 100% the game anyway, so it wasn't like much more effort than that, for me at least.
Yeah, it's actually not too bad at all.
Yeah, I was surprised that it went so well. Besides the rock feather, of course, but hey. Once I got that, the only thing I had left to do is literally do all the dungeons one after another. So I knew where they all were, so it was easy to get through those.
Well, cool. So yeah, when we come back, let's dive into Rubble Saver 2, aka Max, and we'll talk about why the names are different. Back, everybody. So this game never came to America, so I guess we should do a little history. So this Rubble Saver 2 obviously is going to have a prequel because, you know, the 2 in the title. Rubble Saver 1 came out in Japan. Was it Rubble Saver 1 or was it Adventure of Star Saver in Europe? Do you remember? Do you know, Mo?
I'm pretty sure it's Adventure of Star Saver here as well.
Okay. So in America and in Europe, Rubble Saver 1 came out as Adventure Star Saver. Pretty unheard of game as well.
Definitely.
It's a pretty, I don't want to call it a bad game. Like it's like I've played bad Game Boy games. Like it's not bad, but it's awkward to play. The controls are not very intuitive. There's a lot of like power-ups that you just don't know what's happening. But regardless, like, so we have Rubble Saver 2 now. Rubble Saver 2 never came out in America. I'm assuming because the Adventure of Star Saver may have not sold as well, or when they were making this game, they probably thought like, yeah, it's probably not going to sell very well in America, so let's just not even port it over to there. But instead, Europe also got this game under the name Max for I don't know what reason whatsoever. But like it came out in 1992, which is the year after Adventure of Star Saver, and it was developed by A-Wave. The issue is that the game itself is kind of controlled by two different companies depending on the region you're in. So like in Japan, you had King Records, which never really published anything for video games, but they were more on the side of composing. And you had Max, which was from Infogrames, which there's a whole lot of stuff, at least in Europe. I think they had like comics and stuff like that from Infogrames. So it's kind of it's a bit of a weird game in terms of the locale where it was released.
Yeah, it's definitely weird because like King Records is really a records company, so it's been around since 1931. It's one of the few companies in Japan that's actually not been bought up by another multinational company. They're housed in Tokyo, but yeah, it's weird that they release games, and it's also probably because of that we cannot find any information about the actual composer of the music in, well, either of the games. It's probably just developed by an internal team at King Record Studios, and they never mentioned who actually got around to making the sounds or anything like that. Like, I'm 100% sure Infogrames did not make the music at all, because that's usually by Gonzalez, and he has like a very distinct style that you recognize immediately, so that's definitely not his work. But yeah, it's weird that they only released the first one in the USA as well, actually, or in Europe. I'm actually not really even sure if it's got released in Europe, the first one. But yeah, for the second one, they kind of did some weird stuff. Calling it Max, for instance, in Europe is something that's also a little bit hard to explain. In the first game, the protagonist's name, according to the manual, is called Kevin. And he's trying to save his sister, which is okay by me, but if you look at the HUD in the first game, you actually do see that he's called Max, because that's basically what's in the HUD. So they just took the Max name for well, the second game in Europe instead of just calling it Adventures of Star Saver. Where does the Star Saver come from? Nobody really knows that either, because it's not about saving stars at all. At least not the first game. The second one kinda is. But it's just such a weird game, and it's so hard to find any good information about it. Maybe we can find a Japanese manual for both of them. No, none of us could be able to read it anyway, so it's really hard to find a coherent story about this game.
I was actually like I spent a few hours like trying to find just a manual or just like a basic write up of the game. Like I could not find anything when it came to like the plot or the manual or nothing. So I was like, well, let's hop on eBay, or something to see if I can find like a game with the manual. And I realized that like if you can find the game on eBay, it's like that's like a $200 game.
Yeah, it's well, you can be sure that it didn't sell well at all, because it's also pretty unheard of everywhere. I think our teammate Grannon Hero actually bought a complete in-box copy of that, so he will have a manual. So I'm actually kind of wondering if he has an English manual, or that is just like what I could find, the German translation on the back of the cover. So I don't know where it all got released in Europe. I've never seen it before. Like, not in the wild, not when I was a child, never. So I did manage to find some stuff about the plot when looking at the actual case of the game. So I could read the back of it, which was in German. And I translated it because I am from Belgium. Our three main languages of this country are Dutch, French, and German, so I kind of have some knowledge about the language. And I'll go into that a little bit later. I'll actually read the German thing for you. I'm gonna piss off so many Germans because I can't really read it, but we'll see how that goes. And then I'll translate it after that, so we'll see about that. I do want to talk a little bit more about Infogrames because you said they have some comics. It's actually not true. It's a little bit different. Infogrames is a French game company. At least they were called Infogrames until Atari bought them. Now they're just called Atari SA, which I don't know what the SA actually stands for. So yeah, I don't know if you know that, EBC.
I have no clue.
Yeah, I don't know. As it sounds to me like South Africa, or South America, but that doesn't make sense because, well, France is in Europe. But anyways, Infogrames, they actually wanted to call their company The Boop System, which roughly translates to Dick System in English. But their legal advisors said, yeah, probably best not to do that at all. But most people know Infogrames for, first of all, their logo, which is a cool armadillo. I think it has rainbow colors as well, if I remember correctly. But all the games they ever produced when, back in the 90s, were all based on Franco-Belgian comic books. So they didn't make the comics themselves, they're just based on them. Like you have Tintin, you have Asterix, you have Smurfs, you have Spirou, and many others. And I will dive into that in another light episode later. I'll talk a little bit about those games because they're not that great or anything. They're just really mediocre platformers usually. But that's something for another episode.
Yeah, so I just did a quick look up on SA. It's French, apparently. I don't know French very well, so like Société Anonyme.
Anonymous association. That doesn't really make sense, but all right.
I have no idea. Yeah, I'm not a French speaker. I can barely get my way around German and Swedish, so I can barely speak English. I mean, that's my native tongue. So
I understand that.
So yeah, so Infogrames is they're kind of a cool company, honestly. Like I shudder a bit when I see the armadillo, and I'm like, this game is it's not gonna be great. it's not going to be bad. It's just going to be so average that I'm just going to like regret it when I get to the final level type deal.
Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
Asterix is actually a pretty decent game though.
Yeah,
Asterix isn't too bad.
most of their games are pretty decent, but the best thing about them is that they had Gonzalez as a composer, who made amazing music for all of
Yeah.
those games. So that really put them forward into their game making business.
Yeah, most of the music for Infogrames was top notch in my opinion. But I mean, I'll dive into a bit about the King Records here. So King Records is the company that helped publish it in Japan, and like we said earlier, like they're not big into the gaming industry. Like they pretty much started this in the 80s and early 90s. They did a lot of stuff for like the MSX. They did a few things for the Game Boy, but they're still around. Like 2016, they like restructured their entire brand basically. So like the way King Records was done was like everything was under the King Records label. All their anime films, all of their gaming, music, and everything else regarding to that. Obviously, music. And then as time progressed, like they pretty much stopped doing video game stuff. Pretty much after the surge of the Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Genesis in the early '90s, they kind of dropped off the chart when it came to video game stuff. But they kept producing more anime music and things of that nature, which then broke that company off. So like now there's a sub brand just for anime under King Records. So King Records is still up and running even now. But they were in charge of the music with Rebel Saver 1, and the music in the game. Mo and I were talking about this a little bit earlier behind the scenes. Is that the music in the game isn't great, but it's not bad. It's so average that it's forgettable.
It really does not have any like components to it that gets stuck in your head, so you would be singing it after you've played the game or anything. It's just really slimmed down versions of songs.
Yeah, it's I what are they, like 45-second chip tunes that just go on loop over and over again. And like in your head you may think, oh god, 8-bit chip tunes, that sounds awful that it gets repeated so much. Like the music's not bad. Like there isn't like a hard cut, like in some really bad NES games, like after like a 30-second loop you can hear the hard cut of that clip being done and it just re-looping again. It all the music in this game blends very well with each other. It's so basic that you can't hum it, you can't think of it in your head at all. Like it's just so basic that it's forgettable. It's not bad, it's not good, it's very very average.
Yeah, like I played Max just before this recording of the podcast actually, and I have no idea how the music sounds like anymore. I just do not know.
I mean, I speed ran the game. I gave the game a base route. I've ran it in a marathon, and I could not tell you how any of the music went at all.
Yeah,
Like,
so
it just all blends together. So
yeah, just enjoy the music when you hear it during this episode, I guess. I don't know if it gets stuck in your head. Please let us know if it does. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'll be listening to this podcast myself as a test before like releasing it, and then oh yeah, this song is in the game. But besides that, I wouldn't know.
yeah, like I know my chat be like, well, we heard this song before, and it's like the title entry of the game. I'm like, you have? I'm like, it all just sounds the same to me.
Yeah, pretty much. If I remember correctly, though, a lot of music gets reused during the game, so a lot of levels do have the same exact music and stuff like that, and even the overworld map has the same music as some levels. I think it's something like that.
I think there's only like 3 or 4 actual like chip tunes throughout the entire game, but yeah, they're recycled a lot.
Yeah, and for such a short game, that's pretty weird actually. But maybe that has something to do that King Records had to just come up with some music on the fly to put in a game or something. I don't know.
Maybe I know they had it's similar to Adventure Star Saver as well, because like again the controls of that game were not bad, but they were very awkward. However, the music composed by the same company awful, but it wasn't great to get. Like it fell right in that gray area again. Like it was different than Max's, but I couldn't tell you what was different about it. That's how average it was.
Yeah, maybe there's even songs that got reused throughout the 2 games that I couldn't tell you. No idea.
But outside of the audio, something to note, and we've talked about this in Solar Striker, the previous episode, the box art. Like, I'm looking at the box art right now between Rubble Saver 2 and Max. And the Max box art, it's pretty laughable.
Yeah,
honestly.
It's amazingly horrible, actually. Like, I'm really sad about that box art because some of the European box art is pretty dope, but this one is just like, I don't know.
It's like a mixture of a plumber, some guy in a rocket suit, and Space Invaders.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like if people are looking up the actual covers while listening to the podcast, if you look at the Japanese one, you can see your mech suit. You can see that you're probably somewhere on an alien planet fighting some kind of robot snake. But it looks cool. It makes you feel like you're going on an adventure in space. If you look at Mac's cover, however, you see his child form. That is, when you're out of the suit. Why would you go with that in the first place? He has some kind of laser blaster in his hand that looks like something that cut out of a Star Wars movie.
It kind of looks like a toilet.
Yeah, it actually does kind of look like a toilet.
Yeah, no, it looks like a toilet.
Yeah, and together with the plumbing
with the plunger on
top. Yeah, like for people who haven't played this game yet, you have some kind of suction cup thingy that you can use to latch onto platforms. But here it just looks like he has a plunger on his head. So it's really, really weird.
Yeah, so to give you guys some context here, like Mo was saying, so the Max cover art for the European version, like the background, think of like the Space Invaders cover for Game Boy, right, NES, yeah. Arcade, whatever. You have a very, like, they try to make like a 3D perspective type thing, but it's a flat plane. It's the exact same background as that with a building off in the background. Who knows what that building even is? And then you have Max, who we'll get more into the gameplay later, has 3, I guess, forms we'll call it for right now, and they chose his weakest form as like the main focus of the cover, and he has his blaster gun out, which kind of looks like a toilet. On top of his head, like Mo was saying, there's like a grappling hook that you can do to latch onto platforms. Well, it looks like a bathroom plunger coming off of his head right now. Everything like really blends together too. Like the color contrast isn't very good either. Like everything really like blends together. Like you can't really see the contouring lines once you get towards like the middle of the box. Versus like the Japanese cover. The Japanese cover, like Mo was saying, is you're in full mech suit. Like you're in your best form in the game and you have guns for arms. Like you're ready to just beat some ass pretty much. And then you're on this planet, you're on this ship, and in the background you see this robot snake come and attack you, which is cool because that robot snake is actually a boss in stage 3 or 4, I believe. So it's kind of neat they already pull like an element of the game into this cover. It's very vibrant. There's a lot of colors going on. And like the Rubble Saver 2 is like in this like cracked stone like coming up into Max's suit. Like it looks so cool versus the Max cover.
Yeah, I really don't know who made the Max cover, but I hope they achieved a lot in life after that, because this is definitely not something you want on your portfolio when applying for a job anywhere as a graphic artist. It's just.
But it got the Nintendo seal of quality.
It does. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry if the artist is listening to this. Please contact us on Twitter or something like that, but I really want to know what went through your head when doing this, or if it was just your superior saying, no, it has to be like this, because, well, French people, they are pretty weird, so Sorry, French people who are listening. But yeah, this is just an awful cover.
Yeah, it's not good. But aside from the cover, I mean, do you want to talk about the plot a little bit? It's a weird plot. It's very different from the first one.
Yeah, so like I said before, in the first one, the story goes that your little sister gets kidnapped by something. That's about all I could find, and you're out to save them. And you're still just a little kid by then, so you're, what, like 10 years old, or maybe 8 years old, or something like that. So you're really just a little kid going into space, and you find some kind of mech suit that wants to help you out in order to rescue your sister. So this plot actually kinda reminisces on that. I don't know how, I don't know why, because you'll hear it when I say the English version. There is one part of it that does not make any sense whatsoever. So yeah, I'll go with the German one first. So that's the one on the back cover of the Max box art. So here goes my best German. Der abscheulichen Drakor hat Hunderte seiner ferngesteuerten Monster in die Galaxies geschickt und die gesamte Bevölkerung ist bedroht. Doch Max, unser Held, ist nicht umsonst ein Kind geblieben. Seinen Plan, die 7 Planeten zu befreien, führt mit viel Humor, see, that's a word I don't know how to pronounce in German, und Fantasie aus. Mit Hilfe einer unglaublichen Ausrüstung, teleskopischer Saugnapf, tragbare Reaktoren, Schutzanzug, fordert Max die Feinde heraus und scheut von keinem Abenteuer zurück, so groß die Gefahr auch sein mag. So yeah, that was the German one. That went pretty well.
That was pretty good, yeah.
I think the only thing, Abenteuer. See, now I'm trying. Now I'm mixing English and German. Abenteuer. That's it. There we go. All right. So yeah, that was a German one. So I translated it. I asked some help of PLD, who is actually German. He told me that I did a pretty good job, so I was glad. But yeah, the English one is: the vile Drakkar has hundreds of his remote-controlled monsters sent to the galaxy, which threatens the entire population. But Max, our hero, hasn't remained a child in vain. His plan to free the 7 planets he leads with much humor and imagination. With the help of some incredible equipment, a telescopic suction cup, portable reactors, and a protective suit, Max takes on the challenge, not shying away from any adventure, whatever the danger may be. So yeah, that gives you pretty much a good plot. The only weird part is that one sentence, but Max, our hero, hasn't remained a child in vain. Does he have a choice to remain a child? Like, where does that come from? Like, there is no explanation about that whatsoever.
Ocarina of Time, man. He went to the Temple of Time.
Like I was trying to look up the actual plot of the first one. Like maybe he got that suit prevents him from growing up or something. And then it also doesn't make sense that he hasn't remained a child in vain. So otherwise he can't fit into the thing. So he can't save the galaxy. Like it's just like the cover, just like everything that's the history behind this game. It's just weird.
It's interesting to connect the two together because they're so different, but yet there are a couple of like points that do connect them together. Like the mech suit. The mech suit in one looks just like the mech suit in the second one.
Definitely.
However, the mech suit power-ups in the first one are vastly different than the power-ups in the mech suit in the second one. So, like, is it the same mech suit? Did he upgrade the mech suit? Is it a completely different mech suit? Is it a completely different person than Kevin? You know, like...
Yeah, Woo is Kevin. Like, and Woo is Max. It's so weird. Yeah, if it is the same mech suit, he must have done an upgrade to it. Because in the first one, it's a grappling hook you have. And in this one, it's like an arrow. Cup, so that's already different for sure.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre game, and like Rubble Saver 1 is like going into a little bit of a gameplay. Rubble Saver 1, like you don't get to choose like the level. You don't even get to really see the next level. It's like once you've got sucked into this door black hole, like you moved on to the next level, and you had to be ready to rock and roll pretty much right then and there. with Rubble Saver 2, it's I thought they were satellites at first. I didn't know they were planets until now. Because in the overworld screen, they look like satellites, and then when you defeat them, they look like broken satellites.
Right. Yeah.
But the world is broken up. Like when you first start the game, if you pay very close attention, it says stage 0 at the very bottom of the screen for like maybe a second.
Oh, really?
That's because Max is like in the center of the overworld, which I think is the headquarters or like that building that we saw on the Max cover sheet. But you start off on the left side of the screen, and you can choose between the first 3 levels of which ones you want to start with. You can actually choose those levels, but you can't jump to the other side on the right side until you've beaten those 3 levels. And then once you're on the right-hand side, you can choose between the last 4 levels of the game. Mind you, this game only has 7 levels, and they're very, very short stages. So it's really interesting to see like the change, in the actual gameplay as well, because in Rubble Saver 1, you had to have like the power up in order to use the grappling hook. Like you had to have like the arrow or whatever the power up looked like in order to use the grappling hook to pull you out of a pit. Versus Rubble Saver 2, you now have this built-in suction cup where you just press up on the D-pad and you just suction right up to, whatever bottom of the platform that you're trying to get to. So it's a very different dynamic of like the gameplay itself as well. Weapon power-ups are pretty vastly different too. The power-up system in Rubble Saver 2 it's a very unique one, and I want to get into that a bit later. But the power-up system in Rubble Saver 1 was basically like if you lost your power-up in Rubble Saver 1, you were kind of screwed because like that game was very unforgiving when it came to destroying sprites. Like you would break a sprite, you would break one sprite, and that sprite would break out into 3 other sprites. And if you weren't ready for it, you were taking a hit or you were dying. Like it was tough.
It is, but luckily in the first one, and this is probably the only reason why it's so easy actually to get through the game, is there are 2 power-ups in the first game. One is a lion head and the other is some kind of triangle that bounces around.
It's like the Triforce, yeah.
Both of those give you invulnerability for a pretty long time, which makes you be able
stage.
to you just run through everything, which is great because actually fighting enemies causes another problem with the first game, which is the lag. If you've ever played a Nintendo 64 game, those run at 12 to 24 frames per second. This one probably runs even slower than that. Any action you do, any action you take, any jump you make, any shot you fire, and every enemy on the screen causes a lag, which makes the game run super, super slow.
Yeah, I mean, Rubble Saver 2 is no angel in that regard either. Like, there are plenty of areas in Rubble Saver 2 where like that game will drop down to about 5 frames a second easily. In Rubble Saver 2, when you get to the final boss, and we'll talk about power-ups a bit later, when you get to that final boss, it is a bullet hell. Like there are very little places to be safe on that screen because you have 3 heads shooting bullets at you at your location. So, and if you have the fireball power-up, like when you shoot this thing, you can only you can only have one on the screen at a time. But when it hits, it's a piercing shot, so it goes through the enemy. And every time you hit an enemy, it makes some sort of sound or some sort of animation of it being hit. So along with like 20, 30 bullets on the screen, plus your guy, plus shooting this fireball, plus some animation of hitting the boss, like this game will just shut down to about 2 to 3 frames a second until you start eliminating some of those sprites on the screen. Like it is a nightmare at times to play the game.
Definitely.
So yeah, I guess we can talk about some of the. I don't know. I guess we can talk about some of the reception of the game. Like we were saying before, the game. I don't know if I want to call it an uncommon game, but not many people have seemed to have played this game, and those that have played the game have given it a pretty average rating. And in my opinion, it's not a great game, it's not an awful game, but it's one of those games that you'll play it, you may remember it for a couple months, and then you're gonna forget that you've ever played the game. As a speedrunner of the game, I can say that the game is pretty average as well. Typically, when people speedrun games, they swear like, "Oh, you have to love the game to pour hours and hours into it." Yeah, okay, kind of true. But for me, I like to play bad games or games that just no one's ever heard of. So like when I've played this game, I'm like, "Oh, this game's kind of a cool speedrun right off the get go." And then after a while, like after playing it for so long, I'm like, "This game really doesn't have much redeeming factors to it. It's kind of a boring game."
It sure is. Yeah, it's one of those games like you pick it up, you've never played it before, the mechanics are pretty simple to understand. At least the second one is Max's.
Yeah.
And you play it for half an hour and you finish the game and you're like, well, okay, I've had fun for 30 minutes. Let's move on to a better game. But at least you're not sad that you had to get through the game or anything. It's just something to spend your time on very quickly and just move on.
Yeah, and the game is super short. Like, I think I blindly beat the game in 20 minutes. So, yeah. I guess I do want to talk about some more data points between Rubble Saver 1 and 2. I don't know if you noticed this, Mo, but in stage 1 of Rubble Saver 2, the rabbits on the ground,
yeah,
those rabbits are the same rabbits in the first game as well. So
yeah. I played them back to back recently and I didn't even notice.
Oh, really? So in Rubble Saver 1, like I mentioned earlier, when you break a sprite, there's a chance for them to like explode into like 3 or 4 different sprites. So right away in stage 1, if you shoot, I think it's like the first enemy or whatever it is, they break out into 3 or 4 rabbits,
right,
and those rabbit sprites are 100% identical to the Rubble Saver 2 rabbit sprites in stage 1 and 3. So
that is pretty cool, but I'm kind of sad that they went for that enemy and not for the dog from the first one.
The
because
dog
he's
was
probably
awesome.
He's the most memorable character in the entire first game. There's like, for people who haven't played that game yet, there's like a dog, and when you're in front of him, he will just sit there and then laugh at you, I guess, kind of.
Yeah.
But when you jump over him, he gets crazy and he starts coming after you, and he takes a lot of hits to take down as well. So he's kind of like a mid boss, and he shows up in like pretty much every level of the game. So he's really memorable to see. It's sad that they didn't put this guy in the second game, actually.
Yeah, the dog was really cool. So in the first stage, if you glitched out the boss in the first stage, you can actually keep the dog on the screen barking at you while you fight the boss. It's pretty humorous, honestly.
And this is a cool dog. Like,
Yeah.
you do not expect him to fight you because he's just standing there and you're shooting at him. Doesn't hurt him at all.
He's just
so
a
you
good
just
boy.
jump over him, and then he suddenly just bites you in your ass. And
It's a good boy. Then all of a sudden he turns into a bad boy. So yeah, when we come back, Mo and I will give our thoughts, our history of the game. All right, so now that we're back, I guess I'll give my brief hot take of this game. I did this game for my system challenge, and I've done my Game Boy challenge for 2 years, 3 years now. I can't remember how long, and I've always scrolled past Max. I've always scrolled past going like Max. I'm like, what the heck kind of game is that? I honestly thought when I first saw the name it was a homebrew or a ROM hack of a sort. And I'm like, oh, okay, just kept scrolling down it. And then within the last year, I did some research on Rubble Saver 1, Rubble Saver 2, and realized that Max was the European version of Rubble Saver 2. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, it is a real game. Cool. And then within like the last like 2 months, I was like looking for a game to play for Game Boy Adventure. And like we were in between games. I'm like, I'm gonna look for a really short game because I don't want to like start a long game with SGDQ coming up and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, let's try out Max. And yeah, I played it, beat it in like 20 minutes blind. I'm like, oh, this is kind of a neat game. So I was like, oh, let's play Rubble Saver 1 right afterwards. And I I was mad the entire time I played Rubble Saver 1. Like, I was like, you can, like, if you went back and watched my stream, like, you can visually see me get upset playing Rubble Saver 1 after playing Rubble Saver 2. Like, that's how different the gameplay is between the two games. But once I started playing Rubble Saver 1, I started understanding like the game at its core. Like, I started understanding how the physics work. I started understanding how the control scheme worked. I started understanding like how health refills and how the weapon power up system, like how all of that started to work. And then it got eventually a little bit better. But like diving into this, like Rubble Saver 2, actually reverse, Rubble Saver 1, when you get hit, once you've hit once, you lose your mech suit. And you're just a little kid. You have to collect an icon that's like a P icon, which P power I guess, I don't know. It turns into a mech suit, and it takes like a second and a half for this kid to climb into the mech suit and be ready to rock and roll again in Rubble Saver 1. Versus Rubble Saver 2, you have kind of like 3 hit points. You get hit once, you lose your windshield. You get hit twice, you lose your mech suit. You get hit a third time, you turn into an angel and die. In this game, Rubble Saver 2, when you collected a P icon again, they didn't change it, you just get your health back instantly. Like, you don't have to wait for the kid to climb into the mech suit. You don't have to wait for the windshield to come down and bolt onto the mech suit. It's like, as soon as you collect that P, you're ready to go again. And same with the weapon power-up system. I don't remember too much of the weapon power-up system in Rubble Saver 1. Mo might remember a bit more about it. But in Rubble Saver 2, you have 3 shots basically. You start off with what I call the P shooter, which is you shoot three bullets on the screen at a time in very rapid fire. Then you have this second gun called I call it the alternate shot, where if you shoot once, it could go straight. Your second shot's gonna go to angle. Your third shot's gonna go straight again. Like, you don't shoot; they don't go off at the same time. So you have to understand what bullet's about to come out of your gun next. And then your third power-up's like this fireball, which in hindsight may seem like a great power-up, but everything already dies in one hit anyway in the game. So the only thing that fireball is really good for is that it goes through walls. But if you collect another weapon, so if you already have the fireball as a weapon upgrade, if you collect another weapon upgrade, you actually downgrade back to the P shooter, which is kind of a neat concept, honestly.
I'm not a fan of that one, but...
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like that, really. I always feel like once you got the biggest one, you should stick to that. Or make different icons for the different weapons, so you can, like, choose between them. So you can choose what is best for what situation or something like that. But just, like, literally downgrading, I don't think that's a pretty good idea.
I guess looking back casually, I kept the fireball the entire time. Like, when I realized that it downgraded me, I got mad. But as a speedrunner of the game, it's pretty nice to be able to downgrade to that P shooter, because that P shooter lets us like fast kill most of the bosses in the game.
Yeah, for sure. That is definitely a difference between Rubble Saver 1 and 2 as well. Most bosses in Rubble Saver 1 actually take quite a while because of their invulnerability frames and stuff like that, or their patterns where you just totally cannot hit them at all. In Rubble Saver 2, you can basically just mash through all the bosses.
Yeah, I will say, like what Mo was just saying, Rubble Saver 1 bosses, I would rank them way above the Rubble Saver 2 bosses. Like, the Rubble Saver 1 bosses actually took some thought and a little bit of skill to actually fight them. Because you either had to wait for a shield to go down, you had to wait for them to like get in a certain position, or open up a hatch where they were shooting from, but you have to shoot that hatch as well, so you have to like dodge some shots while shooting at them. Like, Rubble Saver 1 bosses actually took a bit of trial to defeat them, versus Rubble Saver 2 is, if you have the fireball upgrade, you pretty much just shoot it twice and they're dead. But I mean, what do you do? But the level design in Rubble Saver 2, in my opinion, is way better than the level design in Rubble Saver 1.
Yeah, very much so. There in Rebel Saver 1, it's usually just really a straightforward plane. You move from left to right. There's not much platforming about it besides jumping over pits. In Rebel Saver 2, you do kind of have to like go up on the screen to a higher level or down on the screen and stuff like that, or even figure out mazes later on.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a lot better.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's like the second or third to last stage in Rebel Saver 1. There's these blinking platforms that you have to jump on. And I didn't notice that they were blinking. Like, I couldn't see the blinking on my CRT. And I'm like shooting this thing, jumping around like an idiot. And like sometimes magically the door would open. I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. And then I went back and looked at my stream and I realized that the platforms were blinking, but not on my CRT. So I was like, oh, that's strange. So I'm like, what if I just moved over? So I was watching my stream while playing Rebel Saver 1 and like jumping on these flashing platforms and things were happening. I'm like, oh, okay, so these things actually happen if you do this, but I just couldn't see it on my CRT, which I actually think that's kind of a neat thing as well. Like, it puts a little bit of a puzzle element into the game as well. Like, you can kind of brute force your way through some of those sections where with the arrow thing that you had in Rebel Saver 1 to swing across the pit. But Rebel Saver 2 really didn't have anything like that. The biggest puzzle, quote unquote puzzle, they had was stage 3, which was the colony stage, where you had to kill every enemy in the screen to open an exit door to move on to the next screen. Versus every other level in the game, you don't have to kill a single enemy. Like, typically in the speedrun, you jump over most of them because when you shoot, you slow down. So
yeah, speaking about those blinking platforms, that's definitely something that was an issue when I first played the game. They do not only activate when you jump on them, which is also in between quotes because I still haven't figured out how you actually need to jump on them. I just keep spamming jump until they actually work after a while, so I'm not sure how they work exactly. But there are also some that you have to shoot in order for them to activate, definitely during stage 6 or 7 when you're in that castle and you have to lower the drawbridge and stuff like that.
About that stage.
But yeah, it's a really weird mechanic, and it definitely put a hinder during my first time playing through the game because I also had no idea what was going on, and I did see the blinking platforms. So
yeah, another thing to like take into consideration too is that Rebel Saver 1 and 2, they don't have continues. Once you're dead, you start the whole game over again, which doesn't seem like a big deal. Like, they are for relatively short games, but the difficulty like spike in Rebel Saver 1, especially when you get to the final stage, like you have to go through a gauntlet of like 3 or 4 bosses along with other things that are trying to kill you as well. So it's a bit of a run through. Versus Rebel Saver 2, you kind of like pick and choose what levels you want to go to. Like, oh, I'm really bad at this level, maybe I'll do this one first, or I'm really good at this level, maybe I'll do this one first. But a fun thing about the game is the Rebel Saver 1, if you don't have the little arrow power up guy to grab a hold of the platform and you fall into a pit, I believe you just straight up die in Rebel Saver 1.
right.
In Rebel Saver 2, you have a thing, I think they call them portable reactors. I call them the thrusters. Where if you fall into a pit in Rebel Saver 2, you don't necessarily die. You like activate this jetpack that you can like rocket yourself out of a pit, and you're fine. You're safe. Nothing bad happens unless you are out of reactors. If you're out of thrusters or reactors, whatever you want to call them, and you fall into a pit, you're dead. But the only part that really comes into play is the final stage. We have to like pretty much suction cup all the way across it, or have like 4 or 5 reactors to get across it without problem. But other than that, like pits are usually not a huge issue in Rebel Saver 2. But there is some platforming that is actually pretty fun to navigate through. Stage 4, I think it is, whatever the quote unquote ocean stage is, where we have like squids and stuff coming at you, and birds, oddly enough. That level is actually really fun to like play through because there's so many areas that you can like go through platforms on with your suction cup. So if you think of Bionic Commando, wow, I'm gonna put Bionic Commando in this podcast now apparently.
Wow, yeah.
So if you have ever played Bionic Commando, You know that whenever you throw like your latching hook out and you go up to the platform, if you press up again, he climbs up onto that platform that he was latched onto. Kind of a similar concept in Rubble Saver 2, where if you latch onto a bottom of a platform and press up again, you'll actually climb through the platform and be on top of it again. So it's kind of it's kind of neat on how you can use some of that for your advantage. Using the physics with the grappling hook or the suction cup, whatever you want to call it, is actually really tedious and tough. Your suction cup, you can't be close to the roof or the top of a platform, because if your mech suit hits the top of a platform, you get shot down. Similar to that of like Mario or something. Like if you hit the ceiling of like a Mario game or like a Zelda 2 or whatever it is, you get pushed down at a faster rate than you would just falling. Similar concept on that as well. So you have to have like that sweet spot of perfectly between like the ceiling and your grappling hook, and keep holding right or left and try and like make yourself swing over pits or things of that nature. Like it's a little bit tedious, but it's actually fun to do if you can do it correctly. But when did you? So you played this for your challenge, Mo, right?
Yeah, now that I think that's what I've written down, but I think actually before I even started like doing the actual system challenge, I think Tiny Town 1 came before that. So I did some research into some games at least by then. I was just going through all of the ROMs I had alphabetically, basically. If anything in 2 minutes looked interesting enough, excuse me, I wrote it down. So I think I came across Max that way the first time, so I did play it before. I don't think I finished it though by then. When John Carls was actually speedrunning Adventures of Star Saver 1,
Poor guy.
I did play through that one for the system challenge because he said it was super easy, so I was like, yeah, I can use a short game, so why not? Then it took me almost 2 hours, of course,
Yep.
because I had no idea how it worked yet, and the lag was incredible.
Awful.
And like you said, the bosses in the first one actually do take some skill. The first time you come across them, some of them are really hard to dodge. The ones that come to mind are the monkey. I don't know which level that is, but he has a weird pattern that you have to get used to be able to shoot him. And then there's the octopus, which you have to shoot both tentacles off. Which
Was that the one that like made the screen like black and you had to like kind of
the pitch black
that one was hard.
Yeah. It's a really hard one, and also I thought I always softlocked the game there because I was shooting him, so one of his tentacles stopped, I guess, and I couldn't hit him anymore. And I could not figure out that you actually had to try and lure him to the left side so you could actually go to the right side and shoot his other arm. So I really thought I softlocked the game every time there. Luckily, I had enough life, so I figured it out before I game overed. So that was good. That's the one good thing about Rubble Saver 1, I guess. It's easy to get extra lives as long as you have the suit still on. If you pick up another P, you get an extra life, so you max out on your lives pretty much after stage 4 already. So that's not really a problem. But yeah, that was fun. And Max, I think I actually played through a few months ago. I just wanted a short game. I hadn't had much time to stream, and I knew it was a pretty simple and short one, so I just did it. But besides that, I had never heard of the game before. I actually thought when I saw the name that it was referring to the other Game Boy game called Monster Max, if you know that one, which is like Solstice, like how do you call that perspective, like the side, the angle perspective games.
It's like the Marble Madness perspective.
Yeah. Like it's always at an angle. So I always thought Max was just an abbreviation of Monster Max, but it's a completely different game, of course. So, but yeah, I had fun with Max. It is short, so that it's really forgettable. Like we said before, I do like the boss designs a little bit more in the second one. Just the designs. I'm not talking about the actual boss fights. They just look a lot prettier. They mostly fill the entire screen because they're like mechs and stuff like that, which is really cool. So that's something I really like about the second one. I'm gonna ask Grannon Hero how he managed to get one because he only paid around 20 euros for it for
Oh
complete
God,
in-box copy.
that's so
Meanwhile,
cheap.
yeah, it's really really cheap because usually that game goes for definitely more than $120 dollars at least. So he got really lucky on that. I still need it for my collection. I do collect all games. I do not care about complete in box, but I would love to get my hands on an actual copy of the game for sure.
Yeah, I guess going back to the bosses, like I liked the design of the bosses, and like if you actually take the time and like look at how the bosses are supposed to be done, like the stage 1 boss is like this thing hanging from the ceiling, and the only way you're supposed to be able to hit it is if you jump up and like hang from the ceiling and fall down. You have to shoot it in between like these like flower things on the corners. You have to shoot it right in the middle in between. It's kind of a tight shot, but with the fireball, you can shoot through walls basically, which means you can shoot through these flowers that are guarding the core of the boss, and you can just shoot right through them and start hitting the boss right away. And then if you have the alternate shot, you can actually run underneath of the boss and fire. You can actually, if you angle the shot right, you can actually hit the core behind the flower from the ground as well. So I don't know if this is like they didn't test this game very well, or they didn't like try. Like the stage 2 boss is, I call it the dog boss, but basically what it does, it has 2 legs, and it lifts up one of its legs and shoots, and you're supposed to shoot it while this leg is up. Again, if you have the fireball power up, you can shoot through the leg and hit the boss. So so there's a lot of that in the game, and like I said, I don't know if it was just like they didn't test it, they didn't know that you could do that. Like maybe they had a person test it that really didn't know anything about the game. Like there's a lot of like disconnect between QA and the actual game itself. So
Yeah, if I would have to place a bet on it, I would say it was not properly tested. But you could also say maybe it just really rewards you for having the correct type of weapon
yeah.
for the boss you're at. So that could be another explanation for that, but I'm still gonna say it just wasn't tested properly.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, and of course we take that to our advantage in the speed run. So reiterate, speedrunning is not a focus of this podcast by any means. Bo and I dabble in it, but I wouldn't consider ourselves the quote-unquote full-time speedrunners. We just like to play Game Boy games.
Absolutely.
But I will sometimes take a game that's not on the speedrun.com leaderboard, and I will put some time into it. Like I'll play it casually, and if I find it to be a fun speedrun, I'll throw some time into it, try and make a base route out of it, try and get it down to like a 20-minute time or less, or, whatever it is. So someone else be like, oh, this is a fairly short game. Let me see what I can do with it type deal. So when I did Max, I was like, okay, well, after I played Rubble Saver 1, I'm like, I'm going to go back to Max and see how fast I can beat the game now that it's fresh in my head. And I got the game. Like, I beat the game again in like 15 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay. So like I just kept throwing some more and more time into it, started to understand more and more about like the power-ups, how the movement, et cetera, et cetera. And I think I got the game down to like an 11-minute time basically. And rewind a little bit, I ran out of handheld heroes, and Wolfmeric and Atraz have expressed interest in the game after watching me run it at the marathon. And within 3-4 days after the marathon was over, Wolfmeric posted a sub 10 time in the game. Like he posted like a 9:30 something, and then today Atraz posted like a 9:20 something in his run. So it's really fun to see like people take what you've researched and just like push it, more than you could ever thought possible. Like I personally only thought that sub 11 was possible. Then I got the sub 11 right before the marathon, and I was like, yep, maybe at 10:30, that's about it. like seeing Wolfmeric and Atros run the game now, like a sub 9 in the game is super possible with all the stuff that we've found. So kudos to those guys. Atros, I think, is right now the current world record holder, but I can definitely see Wolfmeric trying to take that title back. So
yeah, that's always fun to see, and that's one of my intentions, like I've said before as well. Like when we're doing Tiny 10 and stuff like that, it's not just for us for speedrunning games. We just try and set a route for like lesser known games so that other people who are actually willing to put time and effort into anything can actually achieve something great with the games. And yeah, I've lost what 15 world records already because I just was the first one who did the game. Yep. I just got a great route to start from, and other people took it from there, and that's always super cool to see. And I think Other Blues, has shown some interest in this game in the past during their episodes. He mentioned them a few times before, so maybe hearing about this again, because he was looking forward to this episode, he said. Maybe hearing about this, he'll actually dive into the game sometime.
Yeah, I would love to see Author Blues and John Carls dive into this game. But John, like, I would like to see what he would do with the game. After running, Adventurous Star Saver, like, I would really like to see what his opinions are of Rubble Saver 2, aka Max, and see like how fast he could pull a time down, with better controls and a bit more straightforward levels as well. So since he already has experience in the series already, so
yeah, and the other one, yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll pick it up soon after hearing this episode. It would be cool. More runners is always good.
Be great. We already have 3 on the leaderboard right now, so. Keep it growing. I expect 300 plus runners like on the KDL board.
Definitely. More than Barbie Game Girl.
There's a lot for Barbie Game Girl now. It's fantastic.
It's true. I don't know why.
I used to be a top 3 runner in that game.
And I'm the actual world record holder of that game, but just nobody wants to give it to me.
I have tried to recreate your glitch. I have tried. I think I understand how to do it. I just can't do it. I'm not good at tassing. Yeah. I'm not good at tassing, so it's hard.
Indeed, it should be picked up by somebody who knows how to tass for sure. For people who don't know what we're talking about, during the last 12-hour challenge, I wanted to do as many Game Boy games as possible that I didn't have a time on. So I did 7 games. One of them was Barbie Game Girl. Were all games that you could like learn in 15 minutes and then just speedrun for 45 minutes and get a decent time, and that was my goal. So I did Barbie. I was on my 4th or 5th try to get a good time, and stuff happened, and I don't know what happened. If you watch my video about it, you can see that I'm completely baffled, but somehow I managed to skip from stage 2 to the final stage, which is like a 5-level skip, and finish the game in 4 minutes and something, instead of like 9 minutes. So that was really cool, but nobody has figured out how to actually do it or what actually happened. So it's always fun to bring up that they don't want to give me world record for that game.
Yeah, it's something with your speed and your hitbox. Like it's like a combination of a lot of things that I can trigger stuff, but I can't make it trigger what you did. So
yeah, somebody will eventually figure that out.
Hopefully. Sure. I have found my fair share of glitches in that game too. Like in the fast food level stage, you can overflow the y-axis and go underneath of the stage, and you can either soft lock or you can hard reset the game. You can do a lot of crazy stuff on that stage. It's insane.
Yeah, it's not a well-programmed game, so it's definitely something a lot of people can look into if they're interested in glitches and stuff. There might even be a credit warp from the start of the game for all we know.
Well, I mean, if the start of the game, this is now a Barbie Gamer Girl podcast. So at the start of the game, like a level 1, if you look to the left, that door on the left-hand side is the exit to level 1. So if someone can figure out how to just walk over that wall, that invisible wall right there, you end level 1 right there. So
see, a lot of potential for that game. All right, no, let's cut this speed running because, as we said before, that is not the main focus of the podcast at all. But we just wanted to dive a little bit into some weird stuff there. But yeah, we're gonna take a short break and then we'll come back with some listener questions, with some community announcements and stuff like that. So we'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, we're back. Let's talk a little bit about the community events related to Game Boy. First up, we have, starting this weekend, hopefully when this podcast also comes out, we have ESA Summer, which is, of course, the European Speed Running Assembly. There we go. I was thinking about a completely different word. But yeah, everybody knows ESA. It's the European counterpart to SGDQ, AGDQ, which is always fun. A lot of your European guys will be there, and girls, of course, not only guys. Mostly guys, probably, like usual. But yeah, we will see a lot of people there, oh man, I forgot all the Swedish streamers' names.
We got Andy Swee.
Yeah.
He's going to be doing Mega Man 2 Game Boy, I think, at ESA.
Yeah.
We got, Dexter, cool kid.
TMR, who's also living there right now, but is actually Mexican, of course. But yeah, all those very well-known persons will be there. And there are a few Game Boy games, like always. Not much representation for Game Boy, sadly, but at least there are some in there. And the Mega Man 2 thing, even though Mega Man 2 is the most horrible Mega Man Game Boy game out there, will probably be really cool to watch because it has a lot of zips and stuff like that. It's a really cool speed run, at least.
Yeah, and Andy is running it, and Andy is god tier at Mega Man 2 Game Boy. Yeah. So, and I think O'Dear, one of our members of the Monochrome City, is going to be there. I want to say is he running Super Mario Land 2?
I have actually no idea, but if he would be running anything, it would probably be Super Mario Land 2. So yeah. Or Tetris.
Yeah, it could be Tetris. He's been playing a lot of that lately. So
yeah.
So definitely keep an eye out on that.
Yeah, and speaking of Mega Man Game Boy, Mega Man 2 Game Boy, the tournament is still going on Speed Gaming. I think the last match I saw, John Carlos got kicked out, so
I'll teach him.
Who's the organizer? But it's a lot of people have picked up that game. It's really cool to see.
A lot of cool stuff has been found in that game since then too, so many screen wraps and zips and whatever else you use speedrunner terminology people use. So much of it has been found in that game, and that's the time of that game has been dropped so much.
Yeah, it's been so long since who actually was it? PLD who found the zip?
I think it was a combination of a bunch of people. Andy found some stuff. Obviously, Tremaine found new stuff. PLD probably found some stuff because PLD is really good at the Mega Man Game Boy series as well. I can't remember his name. I believe he is 3rd place or 4th place right now on the leaderboard for it, but he found a whole bunch of screen wraps and Needleman, I think it was.
Prissy?
Maybe Prissy? Prissy probably has done something too, because Prissy's a madman.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
But yeah, I mean, that's ESA coming up, and like Mo said, Mega Man 2 Game Boy tourney is still going on. I didn't know that tournament was still going on. I thought it was done.
It's still going strong. I have no idea which round they're at, but it's still going.
Dang. Finals, Tremaine versus Indy. I'm calling it right now.
Could be.
Then we got the 12-hour challenge coming back next weekend. The 27th? Yeah, weekend of the 27th.
Yeah, and this time the how do you call it?
The theme.
Topic of the theme is actually games that have never been seen before in huge marathons and stuff like that. So you have plenty of games to pick from if you want to do some
Game Boy library.
Yeah, besides 10 games maybe. So you have 1,031 more games to choose from. So yeah. Get on that. You have 12 hours. Or you could do what I did last time, like I said before. Just pick a few of them, Try to do as many as possible, get a decent time in them, which is really fun to do. You can always look at my speedrun.com profile and just pick any of those out because most of them are really easy. So
yeah, I think for my I initially submitted Lease of the Painful, which is an RPG on Steam, as my 12-hour game, but I think I'm gonna change it to either Night Quest or Roland's Curse for the Game Boy. So
all right, yeah, I will not be home like every time something good happens. But I was thinking of either doing Tech U Fight or get back into all the new stuff from Link's Awakening DX, because that is a game that
that game is so good.
I did speedrun like 3 years ago, but a lot has changed. Like, I don't even know what a super jump is right now. So
Oh yeah, I was telling you to do that during your randomizer.
Yeah, I kind of want to get into that again, but I probably won't be able to make it during the actual weekend. So we'll see.
I mean, you can do it kind of whenever you want. So
yeah, for sure.
I mean, I have Slashfinity coming over next weekend, so my 12-hour
Right.
challenge is going to be pushed a little bit later as well. So for those who don't know who Slashfinity is, he's a Super Mario Land 2 runner, and I want to say he helped create the randomizer for Super Mario Land 2. So
He did it, yeah.
Yeah.
He made it.
And then the other big marathon we have coming up is Midwest Speed Fest, which if you're an American living in the Midwest, you can definitely attend this speedrunning event. It's only a weekend long, and I forgot the charity that they're supporting. I want to say it's some sort of children's charity. It starts Friday, ends Sunday night, like I want to say like 8 p.m. Central Time. And I'm running Kirby's Dream Land Extra Mode Saturday.
What a surprise.
Saturday morning. But there are a few other Game Boy games. The opener for the marathon is Link's Awakening, the original.
there we go.
The original Link's
The
Awakening.
original one, yeah.
Yeah, and then my game is Saturday morning, and I want to say either Friday afternoon or Saturday afternoon. Pokemon Yellow is getting played as well. So
The worst of them all.
yeah. Not wrong.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing Let's Go Pikachu coming up shortly, because everybody else is getting Eevee and I want to get all the Pokemon.
You picked the wrong Pokemon. Pikachu is the worst. Eevee is way cuter than Pikachu.
I know, but I have to trade, otherwise you can't get them all. So somebody had to step up and pick the wrong version. So this time it's me.
Oh man. So yeah, we actually have a question from a listener. We did it. We're making it. We're famous.
Yes.
We are literally internet
We
famous.
have listeners. Unbelievable.
So yeah, this question is from John Carls.
Yeah, out of all the people.
What elements of the game, Max, do you think were improved from Adventure of Star Saver? And what makes it such a better game in your opinions? Mo, do you want to start this one out?
Yeah, we talked a lot about the changes between the games already, of course, so your question kind of got answered already during the course of the entire podcast. But yeah, like, they got rid of most of the lag, which makes it so much better and much more enjoyable to play, at least. They spruced up the sprites a little bit, even though they are the same, but in general, Rubble Saver 2 looks a little bit more pristine than the first game. The weapons are better in this one, even though I missed the invincibility one, because that one was really good to just get you through levels without having to do anything. So that I kind of missed that one. Yeah, I don't know. Like I in general, I feel like the second one would be enjoyed more by the general populace than the first one, just because. Mostly because of the lag and because it's also a lot easier to get into.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you just said. The game is much easier to play just in general. Like, it's not your typical early 90s, like, bash your face against the game and wait until, you hope you beat the game or hope you pass a level. The game is In terms of the difficulty scale, it's pretty low. Very easy to get through. Health, I mean, you have 3 hit points. You can't really die in a pit unless you really try. Like, it's just an overall, like, it's an easy game to like pass your way through. I would say the two biggest improvements for me with the game is the controls. Even though the controls still feel slightly floaty, um, I feel like when I press a button or do something with my controller, the mech suit actually responds to it. Versus Rebel Saver 1, when I would like press a button or do something, it felt like there was a little bit of a delay when I wanted to do something or shoot or, fall into a pit and use my arrows to get out of it. And the other thing is the health system. I think the health system really is what really put the game in a better state than Rebel Saver 1 for me. I could have lived with the same weapon power ups. I could have lived with the thruster spinning an arrow again, but the health system in Rebel Saver 1 was pretty much if you get hit twice, you were dead. If you got hit once and found a mech suit, you had to wait like 2 seconds to climb back into this mech suit and get through the level again. And this game is you get hit 3 times, you die. When you hit twice, I guess we didn't talk about that at all. So if you have the fireball upgrade power, if you lose your mech suit completely, your weapon is downgraded to the alternate shot, and
I didn't know
and
that.
you have to get the weapon upgrade again to get your fireball back. So that's kind of it punishes you a bit, but not enough to where it's going to like drastically ruin the game for you. But whenever you collect a health power up, you don't have to wait 2 seconds to climb into a mech suit. Like as soon as you grab a health power up, like you're immediately back in the mech and you're still going right. Like the game isn't interrupted for you. And to me, that's what made the game better. The controls and the health system is what made the game better for me.
All right, there you have it, John Carl. So hopefully that's enough for you to actually jump into this game as well for your challenge, your system challenge, or maybe even speed running it later
12-hour
on.
challenge.
Yeah, give it a go. So yeah, like in our first episode, we do have another prize question for you guys. Sadly, nobody sent in their yellow postcards last time. I don't know what that is about. Yeah, very disappointing. It was such an easy question as well. You just could have looked to the manual of Solar Striker and you would have found the answer. So let's try something a little bit different this time. For this episode's prize question, what you have to do is you can call us on 555 This is Game Boy, and the question we are gonna ask you this time is, what is the name of Max's sister from the first game?
That's a good one.
So yeah, get on that. Hopefully we will be receiving some phone calls very shortly, and somebody can win the prize, which I don't know what the prize actually is, but hey, you can win it. So
you'll get a shout out in episode 3.
Yeah, wow, okay. But yeah, speaking of stuff in the future, and also a little bit about like the listener questions, at this point in time, it's maybe a little bit harder for you people to reach us. We are gonna make some work out of that. Like I think we're gonna have to buy us a pro SoundCloud account so we can keep uploading our episodes. Of course we have to pay for that, so we're gonna start doing that ourselves, of course, but I think we are gonna make like a Patreon and stuff like that. So if you really like our podcast and you want to support us, you can probably do that. We'll see that we got stuff set up when the next episode airs, so you can actually go onto that. You can at this point reach us through our Monochrome City Twitter and stuff like that, or for the people who know us on our Game Boy speedrunning discords and stuff like that. But yeah, we're gonna try and set some things up so you guys can ask us questions a little bit easier, or contact us with anything else a little bit easier in the future.
Yeah, the SoundCloud thing is once we hit X amount of hours with like the quote unquote free version, you have to start deleting your podcasts off of there. And just for the sake of archiving for people that may want to listen to older episodes. We need to upgrade, so all that stuff is still available for all of you and for us and everywhere else in the world. RSS feeds, however people listen to podcasts nowadays. So that's what's going to go on to there. It's like Mo said, the Patreon is probably going to be coming up in the future here soon. Obviously, we'll be giving you guys benefits for whatever tier. I don't know how Patreon works at all, so however that tier thing works. So, yeah, and like Mo was saying, you can reach out to us via the Monochrome City, Twitch, Twitter. Do we have a YouTube yet?
Yeah, we do. We automatically have a YouTube because we have a Gmail address, right. Of course.
And then, obviously, like if you notice in the Game Boy Discord or the Monochrome City Discord or what other mutual Discord servers we're in, since I'm in like 32 Discord servers, you can reach out to us, either ping us or DM us or whatever. You can reach me personally at eBloodyCandy via YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Mo, where can they reach you at?
Yeah, I'm an idiot because last time I said you could find me on what was it, Twitter/Moelle?
Yeah,
which is not true. I do not have that. But yeah, the thing is that's a little issue I have with my name. That's some German guy or girl always has that account on anything. So yeah, my actual Twitch is Moelle, but with UH at the end. My Twitter is at Nostalgamia, and my YouTube is either actually Moelle, the same as my Twitch, or Nostalgamia Begins, because I have two of them. But yeah, as always, we'll just put all the links into the description below, so that's a little bit easier than trying to figure it out yourself. Yeah. So yeah, you can definitely find us through there.
For sure. So yeah, with that, guys, that is the end of this week's episode of Rubble Saver 2, aka Max. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And next time on This Is Game Boy, we hear...
Oh, wait a minute. I'm getting a phone call. This might have something to do, of course, with our questions. So let me just listen to this real quick. Yes, hello, you're with the This Is Game Boy podcast.
Yeah, what?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
The episode's not out yet.
Of course. Just okay. Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
A lot of excitement.
Perfect. I'll let you know. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Goodbye. So yeah.
Are we in the next Nintendo Power?
No. I just got scammed into getting a subscription to Fish and Wildlife magazine.
Huh. So are you an outdoorsman? I didn't know you were an outdoorsman.
Yeah. I guess I'm gonna have to go fishing now.
And enjoy the wildlife. Yeah, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
You can play Pokemon Go. Think of all the Pokemon you catch now.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's Zapdos Day.
Some... Oh wait, but yeah, if there's no phone reception, I'm gonna have a bet. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, that was it for this episode. At least we'll be back next time with Gargoyles Quest 2 for Game Boy, and a little something you did not know. We're gonna release these episodes bi-weekly now. So thank you guys for listening. See you next time.
Goodbye. Yeah, Woo is Kevin. Like, and Woo is Max.